Welcome to Next Gen Tech, Talent and Trends by Sequoia Connect, the space where we explore with clarity and purpose the real impact of talent, technology, and artificial intelligence on organizations.
We are Silva, and today we invite you to reflect with us on the decisions shaping the present and future of the IT industry.
Here, we don't just discuss headhunting, AI, or tech consulting. We discuss what truly drives people, the need to grow, adapt, and lead.
This episode is for you if you're ready to take control of your career, lead change, or learn something new.
Let's get started. Okay, so let's dive right in. The topic for today's deep dive is something that's, well, it's been bubbling under the surface, but has really exploded recently. We're talking about double remote employment.
Or sometimes people call it overemployment.
Right, overemployment. Essentially, it's where skilled professionals, mostly we see this in tech, are juggling two, sometimes maybe even more, full-time remote jobs at the same time.
And often, neither employer has a clue about the other. It's this hidden practice that, really got a massive boost from all the flexibility that came after the pandemic hit.
Totally. The shift to remote work just blew the doors open, didn't it? Suddenly, the old barriers, like needing to physically be in two offices, just vanished.
They completely dissolved, and what's really fascinating, and maybe a bit alarming, is how technology itself, specifically AI, is actually making this, well, easier to pull off.
Yeah, the source material we looked at had this perfect example, kind of an archetype, really. Let's call her Anna the engineer. Her story really crystallizes how this happens.
It really does. Anna, she's a senior software engineer, paid well, highly skilled, but she started noticing something interesting with all these new AI tools coming online.
Tools for what? Like coding assistance,
Yes.
email drafting.
Exactly. Things like AI suggesting code, automating parts of the review process, drafting standard emails, even summarizing long meeting notes or chat threads instantly. Tasks that used to eat up hours of her day.
Okay, so the tedious stuff gets automated.
Precisely. And the result for Anna was unexpected for her employer, I guess. She found she could deliver what looked like a full 40 hours worth of output, hitting all her targets, in maybe just 4 or 5 hours of real, focused work each day.
Wow. So suddenly she has this huge amount of free time and mental energy.
Right. And instead of, taking up a hobby,
Uh-huh.
she saw a market opportunity. She thought, hey, I can do this again. So she went out and landed a second full-time remote contract.
With a different company.
Completely different company. Similar field, but distinct enough. So now she's managing these two demanding roles from her home office.
And relying on those AI tools to kind of fill the gaps, like her silent productivity partner.
You got it. The AI is her buffer, handling the routine tasks, making sure her metrics look good for both employers. Neither one suspects her focus is split. That's the new reality we're grappling with.
And it's not just isolated cases like Anna's, right? The scale seems potentially huge.
Well, there was this survey back in 2022, sort of peak remote work time. It reported that something like 79% of remote or hybrid workers claim they were working two jobs at once.
79%. That sounds incredibly high.
It does. And look, you've got to take self-reported numbers like that with a grain of salt, right? It might include part-time gigs, side hustles, not necessarily two full-time 40-hour-a-week roles.
There's nuance there.
But even if the real number for full-time double dipping is much lower, that figure screams that job stacking is a major, major trend. It's not just a few outliers.
It's a significant behavior pattern in the remote workforce. And that presents this double-edged sword, doesn't it? Opportunities for the individual, sure, but some pretty critical challenges for employers.
Massive challenges, security, legal, operational. Companies are really struggling to get their arms around this. We definitely need to unpack those risks from the employer's point of view.
Okay, so let's pivot to the company perspective. What are the real dangers here when an employee is secretly working two jobs? And what's really interesting is how remote work and now AI just pour gasoline on these risks. It's not just abstract worry. We're talking tangible hits to productivity security. The whole 9 yards.
Let's start with something that might seem obvious, but it has a twist. Productivity and burnout. I mean, it stands to reason, right? Juggling two demanding jobs splits your focus.
Your brain power is literally divided. Deep work becomes almost impossible.
Exactly. So you see decreased focus, maybe the quality of the strategic work starts to slip, and the constant pressure, the sheer workload, It inevitably leads to burnout. We know burnout is huge anyway. Something like 61% of employees say it's their biggest barrier to productivity.
But here's the twist you mentioned, with AI involved.
Right. Before AI became so prevalent, severe burnout or split focus would usually manifest in pretty obvious ways. Missed deadlines, maybe looking exhausted on video calls, sloppy work.
You can kind of see the strain.
Yeah. But now we have what you might call the AI mask.
The AI mask, explain that.
The employee can use AI tools to maintain an appearance of high efficiency, even when they're overloaded or disengaged. AI drafts the reports, AI handles basic code checks, AI summarizes the meetings. So their visible output looks okay, consistent even.
So the manager sees the routine tasks getting done, the metrics look fine, they think everything's humming along.
Precisely. They think they have a productive employee. But underneath, the employee's actual cognitive energy, the part needed for innovation, complex problem solving, real strategic thinking, is completely drained or focused elsewhere.
So the productivity gap isn't in the busy work, it's in the high-value, future-focused work. That's subtle and dangerous.
Extremely dangerous. And speaking of danger, let's talk security and legal vulnerabilities. This is where it gets genuinely scary for companies.
Because the employee is basically a bridge between two potentially competing corporate networks.
Think about it. One person, one home office setup, maybe one laptop, one keyboard, one internet connection.
That sounds like a security nightmare waiting to happen.
It is. The risk of security breaches, data leaks, intellectual property theft just skyrockets. And it's not just about clicking a bad link. Think about cross-contamination.
What do you mean, like malware jumping between systems?
Potentially, yeah. If you're using the same keyboard or mouse for two different company laptops, maybe one setup is less secure. You could inadvertently introduce malware from one environment to the other, or think about simple human error pasting sensitive info into the wrong chat window.
Oof, yeah. And are people trying to, like, technically separate these environments?
Sometimes they try, but often using methods IT would absolutely forbid. Running unauthorized virtual machines and maybe complex dual boot setups on their personal machines.
Which corporate security policies hate because they can't monitor or protect those setups properly.
Exactly. They bypass the standard security tools, introduce vulnerabilities, maybe install software that could be used to steal data. It's a huge headache for IT security teams.
And then there's the legal side, the contracts employees sign.
Big time. Two main issues usually come up. First, confidentiality agreements. You're handling sensitive info for two firms, maybe even competitors. The risk of spilling secrets, even accidentally, is massive.
And the second one?
Non-compete agreements or exclusivity clauses. Most employment contracts state you can't work for a competitor, or that your working hours and mental energy are dedicated solely to this employer. Overemployment almost always violates these clauses directly.
So if discovered, it's not just awkward, it's potentially grounds for lawsuits, especially if intellectual property is involved.
Absolutely. Serious legal risk for the employee and potential damage to the company if secrets walk out the door.
Okay, so huge security and legal risks.
Mm-hmm.
What about the more direct financial and strategic hits?
Well, the burnout we talked about. That eventually leads to higher turnover costs. Even if they're not caught, the stress often becomes unsustainable. People quit.
And replacing high-skilled tech talent is incredibly expensive and time-consuming.
Hugely expensive. Recruiting costs, training time, loss of institutional knowledge. It adds up fast. And if they are discovered, it's usually immediate termination.
So the company is suddenly down a person, scrambling to replace them, dealing with the fallout.
Right. And that fallout often includes damaged team morale. Plus, think about the strategic impact. Let's say you've got a senior architect secretly working two jobs.
You okay?
Their job isn't just coding, it's long-term planning, mentoring juniors, driving innovation. If their focus is split 50-50...
They can't possibly dedicate the deep thinking needed for that strategic work.
Exactly. Their output becomes tactical, just keeping the lights on. Maybe they rely on AI for the easy stuff. But the company is paying a premium salary for strategic leadership, and they're getting maintenance-level effort.
Which slows down critical projects, delays innovation.
And it ultimately impacts the company's bottom line and competitiveness. That loss of strategic focus is often the biggest, yet hardest to quantify, cost of overemployment.
Okay, we've laid out a pretty scary picture from the employer side. Security risks, legal issues, burnout, strategic drift. That's a lot.
It really is.
But we can't just dismiss this as people being unethical or greedy, right? To really address it, we have to understand why highly skilled, often well-paid professionals are doing this. What's driving this behavior?
That's a crucial question. And you're right. It's usually more complex than just wanting more cash. There are some very real, often valid motivations behind it.
So let's unpack the consultant's perspective. What are the big drivers?
I think we can group them into two main buckets: financial pressures and professional aspirations.
Okay, let's start with financial security and compensation. That seems like the most obvious one.
It often is the primary driver, yeah. But it's not always about just wanting a fancier car. Think about the job insecurity in the tech industry.
It's surprisingly volatile, isn't it? We see these massive layoff announcements constantly, even at big successful companies.
Exactly. So for many engineers or consultants, having a second income stream isn't about getting rich quick. It's a hedge against losing their primary job. It's insurance. If one company does a huge restructuring, they aren't suddenly left with zero income.
That makes sense. It's a rational response to market instability, a safety net they build themselves.
It is. And then there's the direct salary piece. Many feel their current pay, even if it seems high to outsiders, hasn't kept pace with the market rate for their specific in-demand skills.
Especially in niche areas like AI, cloud specialties, cybersecurity.
Right.
The demand is skyrocketing.
Right. And internal company salary bands and promotion cycles can be slow, bureaucratic. Overemployment offers a way to immediately boost their earnings to what they perceive as their true market value. It's like a market correction, but done covertly.
So, financial security and getting paid what they feel they're worth. What about the other bucket, professional growth?
This one's really interesting: professional growth and fulfillment. It's not just about money, it's about building skills and experience.
How so?
Think about diversification. Not just income, but diversifying their skill set. Maybe their main job uses older technology, or it's in a sector they find stagnant.
Well,
Taking a second job might let them work with cutting-edge tech, or learn a new programming language, or get experience in a different industry like fintech or healthcare tech, things their primary employer might not offer.
so the second job becomes like a paid learning opportunity. They're effectively getting compensated to upskill themselves in real-world projects.
That's a great way to put it. It can seriously accelerate their professional growth and make them much more marketable in the long run. Imagine mastering two different cloud platforms or working in both startup and enterprise environments simultaneously. That's valuable experience.
Yeah, that's a powerful incentive. And it ties back to Anna the engineer, doesn't it? Feeling underutilized.
Absolutely. Sometimes the primary job just isn't challenging enough. Maybe the work becomes repetitive, or they feel like they're capable of much more than the role demands.
They've mastered it, and now they're bored or feel their skills are stagnating.
Right. So taking on a second role provides an outlet for that ambition, a way to use their full skill set and feel intellectually stimulated. If Joe Bay only really needs 20 hours of their focus, why not find another 20 hours of interesting work at Joe B? It's about maximizing their own potential, even if it breaks the rules.
So we've got this clear tension. On one hand, the consultants have some understandable motivations, hedging against layoffs, getting paid market rate, diversifying skills, finding challenging work, real drivers.
Definitely.
But on the other hand, we have the massive risks for employers. We talked about security, legality, productivity drain,
Yeah.
and frankly, huge risks for the consultants themselves if they get caught or burn out.
It's a classic double-edged sword. Let's try to weigh those upsides for the individual against the very real downsides, especially when this whole thing is done secretly and likely unsustainably.
Okay, what are the clear, tangible advantages for the consultant who pulls this off, at least for a while?
Well, number one is the enhanced skill set and experience. We touched on this: getting exposure to different tech stacks, different ways of working, different company cultures. That's undeniably valuable for their career.
Builds a much broader foundation.
Exactly. Second, there's the expanded network. They're interacting with two separate teams, two sets of managers, maybe two sets of clients or stakeholders.
Doubles their professional contacts instantly.
Pretty much, which can pay off massively down the line for future job opportunities, consulting gigs, even starting their own thing.
And third, the most obvious one, financial security. More money, faster. It provides that buffer, maybe lets them hit financial goals quicker.
Those are the big three upsides: skills, network, money. Pretty compelling.
Okay, but now the risks.
Yeah.
And these feel overwhelming when you really think about maintaining two secret full-time jobs long-term.
They really are. The first and maybe most unavoidable one is the health impact.
Just the sheer exhaustion.
Yeah. Extreme stress, chronic sleep deprivation, constant anxiety about getting caught. You're essentially trying to live two demanding professional lives. It takes a massive toll on physical and mental health. Burnout isn't a risk, it's practically an inevitability.
And that impacts performance, right?
Yeah.
You can't possibly be at your best in either job under that kind of strain.
Absolutely not. Which leads to performance dilution. Your focus is split, your energy is drained. You might be trying to juggle everything, but the reality is you end up delivering mediocre performance across the board.
Instead of being excellent at one job, you're just adequate, maybe barely, at two.
And that mediocrity can damage your professional reputation more than the extra money helps. People notice when you're always just hitting the minimum bar or seem disengaged.
Then there's the ethical and legal fallout. We talked about the contract breaches.
Right. Secretly, holding two full-time jobs often directly violates employment agreements, company policies, maybe even non-compete clauses. It's not just bending the rules, it's often breaking them.
And discovery seems pretty likely eventually, doesn't it? Scheduling conflicts, accidental mentions, tax forms.
It's very hard to keep it hidden perfectly forever. And when it comes out, the immediate consequence is a complete trust erosion.
Not just with management, but with colleagues, too.
Yeah, it can poison the team dynamic. People start wondering, who else is doing this? Can I trust my teammates? It damages collaboration and morale way beyond the individual involved.
So the ultimate harm is what? Getting fired from both jobs.
Yes.
Legal action. A tarnished reputation.
All of the above, potentially. Significant losses for the employers, yes, but it can also severely damage the consultant's long-term career prospects. It's a high-stakes gamble that often ends badly for everyone involved. So if we zoom out again and think about the organizations, HR leaders, executives, they're facing this growing problem. They basically have a choice to make, a strategic fork in the road.
What's the choice? Crack down hard or try a different approach?
Essentially, yeah. Do they double down on reactive strategies, more controls, more monitoring, basically building higher walls? Or do they lean into proactive strategies trying to build trust, loyalty, and address the root causes? That's the core of the strategic HR playbook here.
Let's look at the reactive side first. The guardrails and monitoring. What does that typically involve?
Well, it usually starts with lawyers updating the contractual language, making those non-compete and exclusivity clauses absolutely ironclad, adding really strict requirements for employees to disclose any outside work, even small freelance gigs.
Closing any loopholes.
Trying to, yes. Then comes the enforcement piece, compliance monitoring. And this is where it can get pretty intrusive.
Like tracking keystrokes and website visits.
It can go that far, yeah. Monitoring login times, network activity, looking for suspicious patterns like connecting to multiple company VPNs from the same IP address. Some companies use software to track keyboard and mouse activity, though that's controversial.
And IT security audits get ramped up.
Definitely. Regular checks for unauthorized software like VMs, unusual network traffic, anything that suggests someone might be running a parallel work environment on company equipment or even personal devices used for work.
Plus, strengthening performance management systems, setting crystal clear expectations about work hours, availability, and explicitly communicating the company's stance on secondary employment, making it easier to spot productivity dips quickly.
Right. All these are understandable defensive measures, but what's the downside?
Well, the big critique is that it fosters an environment of distrust, doesn't it? It sends the message, we don't trust you.
Exactly. It can feel like being constantly watched, like you're presumed guilty until proven innocent. That can crush morale, kill engagement, and ironically might even push people towards looking elsewhere if they feel undervalued or policed.
So that leads us to the proactive strategies, building trust and loyalty instead. What does that look like?
It starts with organizational culture, deliberately cultivating a workplace built on transparency and trust.
Easier said than done, maybe. How do you actually do that?
It means encouraging open communication. Managers need to be trained to have conversations about career goals, workload concerns, even burnout, without the employee fearing they'll be penalized or seen as disloyal.
Creating psychological safety?
Precisely. And a big part of this is shifting the focus, where possible, from hours logged to outcomes achieved. If the work gets done exceptionally well, on time, and securely, do we need to micromanage the exact minutes spent at the keyboard?
That empowers employees, gives them more autonomy.
Right. It treats them like professionals. Then you have to tackle the money issue head on. Addressing financial drivers.
Meaning pay people competitively.
Yes, ensuring fair and competitive compensation that truly reflects market value for their skills, not just internal historical rates. Using real-time market data. This directly reduces the financial incentive to seek a second job just to catch up.
And it's not just base salary, right?
No, it's the whole package. Attractive performance bonuses, good benefits, maybe stock options that give people a real stake in the company's long-term success. Total rewards.
Okay, so culture, fair pay. What else?
Engagement and growth, making sure people have meaningful work that utilizes their skills and challenges them. Investing in clear career progression paths so they see a future within the company.
So they don't feel underutilized or stuck.
Exactly. And ensuring workloads are realistic and manageable. Preventing the kind of burnout that makes someone think, maybe I could handle a second, easier job just for the cash. It's about creating an environment people want to be fully committed to.
It sounds like the proactive approach is ultimately more sustainable, but probably harder to implement than just adding more rules.
It definitely requires more strategic effort and genuine leadership commitment. But the payoff is higher engagement, better retention, and ultimately less need for employees to look elsewhere.
Now let's bring AI back into the picture more forcefully. We mentioned the AI mask earlier, but how is AI acting as a fundamental accelerator for this whole overemployment trend? This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
It absolutely is. AI is a profound enabler here. We talked about Anna the engineer. AI automates so many of the routine, time-consuming tasks. Drafting emails, summarizing docs, writing boilerplate code, handling basic data analysis.
Serving up significant chunks of time.
Exactly. It dramatically enhances individual worker productivity, allowing someone to potentially manage the workload of what used to be a full-time job in maybe half the time or less. This makes multitasking across multiple roles technically feasible in a way it just wasn't before.
So AI isn't just helping them do one job faster, it's potentially enabling them to do two jobs within a reasonable time frame, at least in terms of output.
That's the potential, yeah. And this directly feeds into what we call the trust gap.
Widens it, you mean?
Significantly, because managers can no longer reliably equate time spent working or visible activity with actual strategic contribution or focus. The AI can generate the activity logs, the reports, the code commits.
So the old ways of monitoring productivity are becoming obsolete.
Largely, yes. It forces companies to rethink management, monitoring, and performance evaluation entirely in this new AI-augmented remote world. You have to focus on the quality and impact of the outcome, not just the process or the hours.
Which is a huge shift in management philosophy for many organizations.
A massive shift. And this is all happening against a backdrop of global work dynamics that add even more complexity. For anyone listening who manages global teams, this is critical context.
Like the trend of nearshoring, setting up tech hubs in places like Mexico City or Guadalajara for U.S. companies.
Exactly. Nearshoring has huge benefits: time zone alignment, cultural proximity, access to talent. But it creates this inherent tension around local market salary expectations versus global compensation policies.
Meaning the engineer in Guadalajara might be paid very well for the local market, but still significantly less than their counterpart doing the exact same job in Silicon Valley.
Right. And if that perceived gap is large enough, even if the local pay is good, the temptation for that highly skilled remote worker in Mexico to pick up a second high-paying remote contract from a U.S. or European company becomes incredibly strong. The financial incentive is just massive.
So global pay disparities can directly fuel overemployment in nearshore locations.
It's a significant factor. And then there's the whole issue of work-life balance for global teams, especially across time zones. The right to disconnect.
If employees are expected to be always on to accommodate global meetings, does that make them more likely to seek a second, maybe more flexible job?
It can contribute, yeah. If the primary job is already blurring boundaries and causing digital exhaustion, the employee might feel less loyalty, and taking on a second, perhaps asynchronous role for extra income might seem more palatable. Companies need strategies for structuring global work sustainably to prevent this burnout and maintain engagement.
Wow, so it's this complex interplay of AI enabling efficiency, global markets creating wage pressures, and the ongoing search for flexibility and security.
It's a really complex landscape. Requires serious strategic foresight from leaders, especially around security, loyalty, and fair compensation in this new era.
Okay, let's try to bring this all together. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive on double remote jobs, or overemployment.
We certainly have.
It seems clear that this isn't just a passing fad. It reflects some really deep forces reshaping work. That enduring desire for post-pandemic flexibility, the very real job insecurity in sectors like tech, and maybe most powerfully, AI's accelerating impact on what one person can actually produce.
Absolutely. And while companies understandably react with stricter controls and monitoring, the core conclusion we kept coming back to is that the most sustainable path forward lies in those proactive strategies.
Building trust, paying competitively and fairly based on market value, providing engaging work and growth opportunities.
Exactly. And critically, adapting management and evaluation to account for AI's transformative role, focusing on outcomes and impact, not just logged hours or busy work.
It really forces a fundamental rethink about the employer-employee contract in an age of remote work and powerful AI.
It really does. Which leads us to the final provocative thought we wanted to leave you, the listener, with. Something to mull over, maybe discuss with your own teams.
Okay, let's hear it.
Given the increasing power of AI to automate tasks and boost individual productivity, if an employee, using these tools effectively and ethically, can genuinely deliver 100% of the expected value and strategic output for their role in, say, half the traditional 40 hours, is the real problem the fact that they might take a second job? Or is the problem our fundamental agreement that primarily compensates people for their time rather than directly for the value and outcomes they deliver?
That's a challenging question. Is the issue the overemployment itself or the underlying structure of how we define and reward work when technology changes the equation so drastically?
Something to think about.
This was Next Gen Tech, Talent and Trends.
Thank you for joining us in this conversation where knowledge becomes direction.
I hope this deep dive offered you a useful pause, perhaps a boost of inspiration, or maybe even just a starting point for thinking about what's ahead.
We hope to have left you with ideas, questions, and, most importantly, the drive to keep building your path in the world of technology and talent.
Leave us a comment, share this with your team, and help us keep growing the conversation.
Follow us on social media at Sequoia Connect, and remember, the future doesn't just happen, it's built with talent, technology, and purpose.
We are Silva, and we'll catch you in the next episode.